I've come to Barrow upon Humber, and I'm with Michael Bourne, and he saw my documentary called The Lincolnshire Triangle, and he had a UFO sighting not long after that, and the UFO that he spotted was very similar, apparently, to what I reported in the documentary. So, just first off, Michael, are we in Lincolnshire here?
We are. Well, North East Lincolnshire, yeah.
North East Lincolnshire, okay. And, but we're right on the north sort of side of Lincolnshire,
we are, yeah.
Okay, so just in your own words, just describe what happened.
Well, if you held out an egg in front of you, and that egg was illuminated, say, like an orangey glow to it, and that's what went whizzing across the sky.
Okay, so you were facing east out towards the sea.
Yeah.
You were in the marketplace in Barrow on Humber.
Marketplace, yeah. And this object sort of shot across the skyline, about 30 degrees in elevation.
Right.
Very, very quick.
So
no sound either.
So if you're facing east and it goes right to left, it was heading north.
Yes, it was coming from the south, heading north.
Right. Now, just south of you, in fact, and slightly east, is North Somercotes.
Yes.
You've heard of that place? So that is where the
That's right. Well,
wind turbine incident took place.
Yeah. Well, I'd seen your show, and that was over that way. And then when I saw this object, because I thought, whoa,
right,
because it was night, dark. Right. All I saw, as I said, this object size of an egg, whizzing by with no sound.
So, and could you guesstimate as to how far away you think it was?
It's got to be. It could have been sort of like 3 to 5, maybe.
Right.
know?
So at that size and at that distance, I can make a rough calculation to give an approximate. And I've actually done a calculation in my head. If something's, say, 2 miles away and it's the size of an egg at arm's length, it's going to be hundreds of feet in size. Did you get that feeling that this thing was a huge?
Well, it was definitely something big.
Right.
Because it was a long way away.
Right.
And it was going very, very quick with no sound.
Right. Now, what about the actual edge of the object?
You couldn't really tell the edge. It looked like as if it fuzzed in, if you know what I mean.
So it wasn't a perfect crisp edge.
No.
Then. There was fuzziness to it. All right. And how long in total do you think the sighting last?
Well, it was going very quick. So by the time I focused on it, looked at it, it just about gone.
Right.
So we're talking sort of 1.5, 2 seconds.
Right. Okay. And would you be able to estimate as to how far it travelled in that time?
Well, it traversed the whole skyline.
The whole skyline. All right. And have you thought about any other conventional explanations as to what it might have been?
Nah, nothing could fly like that. Nothing.
Right. All right. And did you hear any sound at all?
No sound.
So just your gut feel, Michael, do you think this is terrestrial or non-terrestrial? What would your guess?
Oh, this isn't from our planet now.
You don't think so?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you look at that telegraph pole there, and then look at that chimney pot there, and the speed that this thing got from there to there, this is about the speed it was going across from that spade. It was going from there, and it was gone there.
Welcome back. I'm talking to John Hanson about his series of encyclopedias on UFOs, Haunted Skies, and we're now going to look at a few cases from Volume 6, which covers 1975 to 1977. The first case we're going to look at is from Broadhaven in Dyfed in southwest Wales, which took place in 1977 at a school. And allegedly what happened was some saucer-shaped craft lands at the school, witnessed by a lot of school children and a teacher.
That's correct, yeah.
Can you expand on it, John?
Well, we were interested in this case because I'd spoken to Tony Pace, who's a really nice chap, and he's ex-director of investigations with Bufora, recently retired, but he'd gone down there himself in the late 1970s, and he'd got round and seen some of the children and spoken to Randall Jones Pugh, who was a vet by employment but was also an investigator for Bufora, and he lived in a place called Roach. Dawn and I trekked down there. We went to the school, we spoke to the headmaster. We're talking about 10 years ago now, and he showed us a diary that the children had kept. It was still there in the school, and we trawled through that and read some of the letters, and then we tracked some of the boys down that had seen this object.
Who were now adults.
Who are now adults, yeah. Some of them were happy to speak to us, others were a bit reticent because they really didn't want any further publicity on it, but they all said that's what they'd seen.
So,
but we managed, sorry.
The flying saucer lands at this school, and the teachers sat all the kids down who saw it, and there's a very interesting picture there of all the kids with their pictures.
That's right.
That they've independently drawn, and when you look through them, John's collected several of the children's images.
We've got the original ones here.
Yeah,
of course, the problem with the book is, and as I explained before, with volume 8, these books are going to be in colour, and because you don't get the depth in grayscale.
There is variation in what the children have drawn, but they're clearly, I would say, they're drawn the same object, which does look like your classic sort of flying saucer. And this area, John, seemed to have a high degree of activity in the late 1970s. St Bride's Bay, which is the very far west tip of Wales.
That's
and there's
correct.
a rock out in that bay.
Stack Rocks.
And
there's been sightings from there.
Sightings of people witnessing a disc-shaped craft as if going into and being swallowed up by Stack Rock.
And also allegedly humanoids clambering on the surface of the rock itself, which, from my point of view, I have to say, even at this stage of research, I find it difficult to believe, obviously, because one does. But when you interview these people and they tell you about the occupants, as indeed Rosa Granville from the nearby hotel, she saw a landed craft with an occupant at the back of the hotel, and she ended up writing to a member of parliament. And
was she the one that was visited by someone from the Air Force and interviewed by them?
She was, yeah. There was an awful lot of sightings of entities, and some of them were probably hoaxed, mind.
Right. Of the entities, I would go along.
Some, I'm not saying all of them, but some of them
I think
probably were.
There's more than one witness case of people seeing a UFO flying into the side of this Stack Rock, and I think in his book Peter Paget suggests that they're perhaps, I could be wrong here, I'm not sure if it's suggested in the book, but they're possibly going down and under the ground or under the sea.
Under the sea, yeah. And I mentioned to you before that some years ago I spoke to somebody from the local diving club that had, he said, I don't think it was his version of events, but he spoke to a colleague, and I couldn't get in touch with the colleague, but to cut a long story short, that they'd been at diving by Stack Rocks, and his colleague said to him, "You'll never believe what I've seen. There's actually a steel door set into the rock at a distance down, which
under the water.
Again, that doesn't necessarily corroborate the fact that aliens are coming in and out of the rock, but it's Stack Rocks. But it's telling us that's probably, if that's true, well, there's something in there that.
Yeah, and I think there's also a series of explosions which were taking place around that time, which no one could pin down to either an earthquake or an earth tremor or any kind of blasting.
Mystery bangs and explosions.
And people have suggested that was hollowing out some underground base underneath southwest Wales.
Yeah, it may well have been, yeah.
It's in Peter Paget's book that when he went to the school, it had said in the newspaper that only the children had seen the UFO land and take off.
No, some of the teachers had.
Yeah, but the teacher then pulled him to one side and said, actually, the teachers saw it as well. It's just that we didn't want that to go in the newspaper.
Well, that's
so
right.
The teachers were prepared to admit that they'd seen the UFO privately, but not to the press.
Yeah, but Mr. Randall Jones Pugh was the investigator that interviewed the children, and one of the first children he interviewed was David Davis.
Yep.
But do you want to pass them over to you? That's Randall Jones Pugh, and that's Dawn. Sadly, Mr. Pugh has passed away, but he was involved very much with this, and always felt that it was. You're talking about something very religious here and something demonic.
He thought it was demonic.
He was demonic, and he was at great pains to tell us during our short interview with him that we should get Holy Communion and we should go to the church and I don't know. Maybe he's right. Maybe it is demonic.
So tell us what.
I haven't finished.
What allegedly happened then, John? How long was it on the ground for? What did it do? What did this see?
Well, first of all, the object was on the side of the side of the hill. At the top of the hill is a church, an abandoned church. I don't know if it was a derelict church in 1977, but if you can imagine that it's a small school. It's opposite a Baptist church, and a short distance away, slightly up the hill, over a stream, the stream that runs down the side of the hill, was where this sighting took place, and the object and its perceived occupants were there for at least a few hours, and then I've no eyewitness account of it actually going, but it was certainly the kids saw something highly unusual and very interesting case. But not too far away, of course, is the Fort Haven Hotel, where Francis and Rosa Granville and her Rosa's husband lived, and that was where the sighting of the craft and the occupant, which is just on the other side of the hill, and then you've got other sightings locally as well.
I know that it has been quite heavily debunked in various documentaries, especially this spaceman that supposedly was standing outside someone's window, etc. But the number of people who have seen discs at that time in that area is very hard to dispute.
Well, I'm going to be blunt here. So my father was a Yorkshireman, and I will say that if these people that make these documentaries got off their backsides and went down and interviewed these people properly and carried out some accurate research, they would find that a far different picture would emerge, and that is what good research is all about. And you know, I'm convinced that this wasn't just the work of a member of the local Rotary Club that put on a fireman's uniform and walked around frightening people. The Pauline and Billy Coombs, this is the photograph we took of them, they had an entity or a humanoid stand at their window.
This is Ripperston Farm.
Yeah, at Ripperston Farm.
They also had animals
they did.
Being moved.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. And it was quite clear, if you'd gone and looked at the farm yourself, if you'd looked at the window, you know that you'd have to be about an 8-foot tall man to even shown on that window.
Okay. And interestingly, it's not the only case of a UFO landing at a school.
We have other cases.
Several in your book.
Yeah, other cases are outlined. You almost get the impression that the UFOs paid a lot of activity towards schools in 1977.
Right.
Whether it's because that's just a coincidence that people at schools saw them, a bit like saying if you get a flurry of reports of UFOs at 11 o'clock at night from people that are turning out of pubs, is there any relevance to that? In the same way that is there any relevance to the UFOs taking an interest in schools? I just don't know, but there was a lot of reports of these things overflying the schools.
Okay. And let's just look at another case which took place in Dyfed of a lorry driver, Francis Lloyd.
Yeah.
I think this is one of the cases that I didn't want to choose, but you did.
Did I? Well, that's only because I've known Francis, and I've been to see him. Well,
Francis Lloyd from Broadhaven, Dyfed, was proceeding towards Nantycause Hill.
It was going down on Nantycause Hill,
on the A48 southeast of Carmarthen, accompanied by Francis Dwyer, the son of the haulage company he worked for. As we neared a junction halfway up the hill, we both saw, caught in the glare of the lorry's headlights, the weird sight of two figures standing at the side of the road, approximately 7 feet in height. They reminded us of guardsmen at attention. They were dressed all over in what looked like red perspex. I've never seen anything like them before. They weren't human beings. They are far too tall. I just carried on and didn't look back.
Mr. Francis Lloyd was the only man I'd met over the last 20 years that told me about a sighting like this and described humanoid entities like this. I might think to myself, not sure whether I can actually believe that. But why is it that I've spoken to probably 30 or 40 other people that have seen similarly described objects, entities at the side of the road?
It also adds that a few hours later, a UFO showing 2 lights over the coastal town of Silverdale near Morecambe, Lancashire, at an estimated height of 4,000 to 5,000 feet. An identical object showing 4 lights and something apparently attached to it was seen a short time later over Cartmel, 30 miles away.
Right, yeah.
So it's associated with a few nearby UFO sightings. This guy's...
continuing on from that, there's a number of multi-witness sightings by police officers.
Over the Lake District?
Over the Lake District, over Kendal. And I spoke to most of the officers, and you know, you have to speak to them, interview them, albeit I know it happened many years ago, but I did have the copies of the original Bufora reports, which are in there, and they certainly saw what you would say is a triangular UFO.
I'll just read out this. It's a sergeant, a police sergeant. It came to a halt over a nearby hill, allowing us to see it closer. I felt the hairs on the back of my neck start to rise. Sergeant Clifton decided to contact the police control room at Penrith and report the incident, who confirmed they had received a number of calls from the public about the UFO, and that inquiries with the RAF and air traffic control as to the identity of this object were negative.
I suppose roughly you'd have, I know we talked about weak and strong cases, but we would probably be heading towards something like, I don't know, 20,000 sightings in accumulated sightings. So if 10,000 of them is strong sightings, and a lot of them relate to triangular objects, one's bound to ask, really, we don't know what they are and where they come from, but one is bound to ask, what the hell are they? You know.
All right, well, we'll be discussing some cases from Volume 7 after this.
Okay.